May 10th, 2035. 7 billion people held their breath. This was the most important day in human history, the day of the global awakening. Every 18-year-old on the planet was about to face the judgment of fate. You were either born to be a powerful expert or destined to live like an ant. I walked up to the testing platform. My school uniform was washed out and faded, but I didn't care. I kept my face expressionless as I stepped toward the center. My name is Lin Yu. On paper, my aptitude was level 1. That's the bottom of the barrel. The absolute lowest a human can be. Haha, a level 1 trash actually dares to go up there. The live stream comments were brutal. With that kind of garbage luck, he'd need his ancestors' graves to catch fire just to awaken an F-rank talent. Over 4.7 billion people were watching the broadcast. I ignored the mocking voices and placed my hand on the testing sphere. The proctor, a middle-aged man, glanced at my report and let out a snicker. Level 1. Hurry up and get this over with. Don't waste everyone's time. I looked up at him. It was just a glance, but for some reason, the man flinched. He looked confused, as if he couldn't understand how a worthless kid could have eyes that sharp. He probably thought it was an illusion. The testing sphere flickered with a weak blue light. The energy fluctuations were pathetic. The machine droned out the status. Aptitude level 1. Awakening in progress. People were already reaching for their remotes to change the channel. Then it happened. A blinding white light exploded from my body. It was 100 times brighter than the sun. Everyone within 500 meters screamed, clutching their eyes as the searing radiance burned their retinas. The global broadcast went completely white. The signals were failing. The energy was surging out of control. The testing sphere shattered into 1,000 pieces. The entire platform disintegrated. Every electronic device within 100 meters fried instantly. In the sky, 2 pillars of golden light shot upward. They twisted around each other, tearing through the clouds and piercing straight into outer space. One was fierce like a blazing sun. The other was deep and cold like the starry abyss. They sliced the heavens in half. Satellite stations around the world went into a frenzy. Intelligence agencies were screaming for reports. The data showed the energy levels were off the charts. The SSS rank threshold was the limit of the system, but my readings showed 2 distinct peaks. It was impossible. No one had ever awakened 2 talents at once, and both of them had broken the scale. When the light finally faded, the world saw a scene they would never forget. I was standing in the middle of the ruined platform, completely unharmed. On my forehead, 2 seals slowly emerged. One was gold, radiating a terrifying aura of predation. The other was silver, shimmering with a cold, calculating light. The system's remains let out a final, flickering mechanical voice. Asterisk talent evaluation, impossible. Exceeds SSS rank threshold, asterisk. First talent, myriad law plunder. Ability, steal, copy, and fuse all talents. Victims lose their talent permanently. Second talent, infinite insight. Ability, perceive the essence of all things, analyze laws, and see every weakness. Warning, dual SSS rank talents. Target has been classified as a forbidden sequence by the International Awakened Association. Maximum priority bounty issued. Kill on sight. The world fell into a deathly silence. Then, the internet exploded. Dual SSS rank? Is he freaking cheating? Plunder plus insight? That's an invincible combo. He can see your weakness and then just take your powers. Kill him. We have to kill him before he grows up. I stood there, slowly clenching my fist. I could feel the 2 powers surging through my veins. I let out a small, dark smile. 2 cold voices echoed in my mind simultaneously. Asterisk myriad law plunder activated. Infinite insight activated. Dual resonance detected. Evolution system online, asterisk. The rules were simple. If I plundered talents of the same type, I could upgrade them. 5 C-rank fire talents could become 1 B-rank. My insight would also grow as my power increased. I knew my potential was never level 1. Ever since I was born, I felt something sleeping inside me, too hungry, ancient beasts waiting for the day their cage would break. Today, they were finally awake. The proctor who had mocked me was now trembling on the ground. He had realized that with a single thought, I could turn him into a cripple. Lin Yu. I didn't mean what I said earlier, he stammered. I looked down at him like he was an ant. You were right, I said. My voice was so calm it made his skin crawl. Trash shouldn't waste people's time. I reached out and placed my palm near his forehead. Infinite insight triggered. My pupils turned silver as data flooded my mind. Target: human awakened. Male: C-rank talent, flame control. Weakness: weak mental defense. Core located 1.2 centimeters below the brow. Plunder suggestion: aim for the core. Success rate: 99.7%. I didn't hesitate. Myriad Law Plunder responded instantly. The man let out a blood-curdling scream as he collapsed. The seal on his forehead shattered. His energy vanished. From this day on, he was just a normal human. In my palm, a small, flickering flame danced. Plunder successful. Obtained C-rank talent, flame control. The entire plaza was silent. The mockery was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. They realized I wasn't just strong, I was a predator. No one could hide their secrets from me, and no one could keep their power if I wanted it. You're insane, the plaza manager screamed, rushing toward me. The International Association strictly forbids stealing talents. You're making yourself an enemy of the entire world. I turned my head. My eyes were like black holes, void of any emotion. Rules? I laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound. The apocalypse is here, and you're talking to me about rules? As the words left my lips, a thunderous boom shook the earth. The sky split open. A massive crack, thousands of miles long, tore across the atmosphere. On the other side was an endless darkness filled with swarming black dots. They were falling. Monsters. Thousands of them. Some looked like humans, some like beasts, and some were just writhing masses of flesh and tentacles. They poured out of the rift like a plague of locusts, blotting out the sun. Alarms blared across the city. Warning: unknown biological invasion. All awakened. Enter combat status immediately. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted. Hundreds of students screamed and ran for their lives, but they weren't fast enough. A three-headed monster the size of a truck slammed into the ground. Its 3 sets of jaws snapped shut, instantly crushing 8 students who couldn't get away. Blood sprayed everywhere. The massacre had begun. Screams and cries for help echoed from every corner of the plaza. The so-called elites, those B-class and A-class awakened who everyone had been worshipping just minutes ago, were nothing more than lambs waiting for the slaughter. One boy with an A-class talent tried to find his courage. He let out a roar and unleashed his strongest energy blast, striking a monster square in the chest. It didn't even flinch. The attack barely grazed its skin. With a bored flick of its claw, the monster slammed him into the pavement. He was turned into a red paste instantly. A-class. Against these real monsters, A-class was a joke. It was over. Everything was over. The plaza manager collapsed to his knees, his face ghostly pale. He looked into the distance and saw more black dots falling from the sky. This wasn't just a few hundred monsters. There were tens of thousands. Millions. The end of humanity had arrived. But in the middle of that hopeless chaos, I moved. While the world burned and blood stained the earth, I remained calm. My name is Lin Yu, and I started walking toward that 3-headed beast. My pace was steady, almost casual, like I was taking a Sunday stroll in my own backyard. Are you insane? Run! Someone screamed from behind me. I didn't bother looking back. The 3-headed monster noticed me, this tiny, insignificant human, and lunged. Its 3 massive maws snapped at me simultaneously. In that split second, I activated infinite insight. My pupils shifted into a brilliant gold. Suddenly, the monster wasn't a monster anymore. It was a stream of data flowing into my mind. 3-headed hellhound. Level 1 calamity creature. Weakness: 3 heads share 1 heart. Heart located in the center of the chest, protected by bone armor. Weakest point: under the 3rd rib on the left side. Gap: 0.7 millimeters. Hit a gap the size of a coin on a thrashing, berserk beast? For anyone else, that was an impossible task. But I wasn't anyone else. My body moved on instinct. As the 3 heads closed in to crush me, I performed an impossible twist in midair. I dropped my left shoulder 3 inches and raised my right arm by 2. I slipped through the tiny gap between those snapping jaws with less than 10 centimeters to spare. The onlookers gasped, their eyes nearly popping out of their heads. I landed firmly on the hellhound's back. I pressed my index and middle fingers together, aiming perfectly for that 0.7 millimeter gap under the third rib. I struck. My fingers sank into the flesh, bypassing the bone armor entirely. The hellhound froze. All three heads stiffened, its 6 eyes wide with disbelief. Then, with a massive thud, it crashed to the ground. Dead. One hit was all it took. The plaza went silent. Everyone was stunned. A kid who had just awakened, with 0 combat experience and no weapons, had just one-tapped a monster that A-class warriors couldn't even scratch. Is he even human? Someone whispered. I didn't stop to answer. I jumped off the carcass and headed toward the center of the plaza where the monsters were thickest. 1, 2, 5, 10. I wove through the pack like a ghost. Every strike was precise. I targeted eyes, throats, and specific nerve clusters. To me, these monsters had no secrets. They were wide open. It took me exactly 3 minutes. 17 level 1 creatures lay dead at my feet. I stood in the center of the corpses, my school uniform splattered with black blood. My breathing hadn't even changed. A system notification pinged in my head. Asterisk killed 17 level 1 calamity creatures. Force points plus 1,700. Current force points, 1,700. Talent plunder available. 3 dying awaken nearby. Plunder talents, asterisk. I looked across the battlefield. 3 heavily injured students were lying nearby, their eyes glazed over, waiting for death. They weren't going to make it through the hour. Instead of letting their talents vanish into the void with them, I decided to put them to use. I walked over and placed my hand on the first student's forehead. What are you doing? He stammered, his eyes wide with terror. Your talent is about to fade, I said calmly. Give it to me. At least it won't go to waste. He opened his mouth to protest, but then he went limp and closed his eyes. He knew I was right. At least he was still breathing. The others were already gone. Plunder successful. Obtain B-class talent. Steel body. Merging. Success. I felt my muscle density shift. My bones reinforced themselves, and my skin became as tough as leather. A normal person would need 3 years to master a B-class talent. For me, with my SSS class forbidden talent, it took 3 seconds. I moved to the next one. Plunder successful. Obtained A-class talent. Gale walk. Speed increased by 300% in burst mode. Then the third. Plunder successful. Obtain B-plus class talent. Spirit piercing. Mental attack that ignores physical defense. I clenched my fists, feeling the 3 distinct powers harmonizing inside me. This was the true terror of the universal plunderer. I didn't just take one talent. I took them all. I wasn't a student anymore. I was a one-man army. And I was just getting started. Linyu, a voice called out. I turned to see the plaza manager stumbling toward me, clutching an encrypted communicator. The Global Awakened Association, they're calling for you. It's urgent. I took the device. The screen lit up, revealing a stern, powerful face. It was Rex, the president of the association, an SS class awakened known as God's Punishment. He was the man at the top of the world, and right now, he was looking at me with a very complicated expression. Linyu, Rex's voice was deep and heavy. I know you can steal talents. I saw what you just did to those dying students. I didn't say a word. I just waited for him to continue. They were dying, Rex sighed. From a logical standpoint, you didn't do anything wrong. Their talents would have vanished anyway. But rules are rules. Rules. I finally spoke. A cold, mocking smile tugged at my lips. Those 17 monsters I just killed. How many has your association killed so far? Rex went silent. 1, he finally admitted. Only 1. An S-class creature I took down myself over the Pacific. The rest are currently slaughtering humanity across the globe. Rules are made by the strong for the weak, I said, my voice low but sharp as a needle. From now on, my rules are the only rules that matter. Rex's pupils contracted. For the first time in his life, the strongest man on Earth felt a chill crawl down his spine because of a teenager. It wasn't a matter of raw power. It was something deeper, a fundamental suppression of instinct. It was the way a rabbit felt when it encountered a tiger. Even if that tiger was only a cub, the rabbit would still tremble. And Rex, the strongest man on Earth, was that rabbit. This SS-class powerhouse, the pinnacle of human evolution, felt a genuine chill of fear facing a teenager who had just awakened. The call disconnected. I tossed the communicator back to the plaza manager. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. He was paralyzed, unable to utter a single word under my gaze. I didn't waste another second on him. I looked up at the sky, staring at the massive crack tearing through the atmosphere. It was still expanding, vomiting more monsters into our world. My sister, Linyu, had been missing for 3 days. I whispered her name, my voice soft, but my eyes burning with a localized sun. I told her I would protect her, and I meant it. A brother keeps his promises. I turned my back on the mountain of corpses I had created and walked toward the densest part of the rift. Behind me was a sea of blood. Ahead was a world ending. Soon, the world would learn why my talent was called taboo. It was because one man could equal an army. No, one man could equal the entire human race. The rift widened further, and monsters fell like black rain. Jingzhou City had become a living purgatory. I stood at the edge of the plaza, my silver pupils scanning the streets. I activated infinite insight. Every detail within a kilometer flooded my mind. I saw the distribution of the calamity creatures. 5 rank, 1 targets 300 meters ahead, 3 in the alley to my left, 7 inside the building to my right. The threat assessment was clear, no Earth-grade targets in the area. The suggestion? Clear everything in my path and push toward the center of the rift. It wasn't enough. Rank 1 monsters were nothing to me now. I needed stronger opponents, more force points, and higher-grade talents. I was going to tear a hole straight through this city. I moved. I activated Wind Walk, and my body vanished, leaving only a blur streaking down the street. 300 meters ahead, 5 blade-scythe insects were busy slicing a public bus into scrap metal. They were rank 1 creatures with a specific weakness, a 0.3 millimeter gap in the joint connecting the head to the torso. My mind calculated the killing blow, a precise puncture to sever the neural lock. I cut in from the side. I pressed 2 fingers together and drove them into the first insect's joint. There was a wet thud. The creature stiffened instantly, its scythe-like limbs dropping uselessly. It was dead before it hit the ground. The second one sensed me and turned, but I was already there. The remaining 3 lunged. Using infinite insight, I predicted their trajectories down to the millimeter. 1 scythe grazed my nose. Another passed an inch from my stomach. I didn't flinch. I leaned back, using the momentum to kick the second monster squarely in its joint gap. 1 by 1 they fell. 15 seconds. 5 kills. 500 force points added to my total, bringing me to 2,200. I flicked the ichor from my fingertips and kept moving. In the left alley, 3 spider-like creatures were trapping survivors in webbing. These were bladefoot spiders. Their weakness was a neural node in the center of the belly, protected by a false shell. I rounded the corner and threw a punch. With the reinforcement of my steel body talent, my fist was harder than any alloy. The shell shattered. My fist punched straight through the creature's abdomen, spraying green fluid everywhere. The other 2 pounced. I stepped aside, dodging a venomous fong, and summoned a blade of fire in my right hand. 1 clean sweep took the head off the second spider. The last one adjusted, stabbing at me with all 8 legs at once. I retreated half a step, calculating the pattern. Left, right, up, down. I moved like a ghost through the gaps in its limbs and crushed its neural node with a single strike. 12 seconds, 3 more kills. My force points climbed to 2,500. I continued toward the rift. Along the way, I saw more survivors, or rather, what was left of them. The streets were littered with severed limbs. The same classmates who had mocked me minutes ago were now nothing more than shredded meat in the mouths of monsters. I walked past the bodies without expression. This was the world now. The strong eat the weak. It was always like this. The apocalypse just made it obvious. My only concern was Linyu. Linyu, where are you? I muttered. While I hunted, the world's major powers were panicking. In the Pentagon's underground command, a 4-star general stared at my live image on the screen. His face was grim. He saw a monster that could steal the talents of all humanity. To him, I wasn't a savior. I was a threat that needed to be neutralized before I grew too powerful. Permission to kill, he ordered. His staff hesitated, citing international regulations, but the general snapped back. He didn't care about rules. He saw a natural predator of all awakened. In a secret base in Tokyo, an old man in a kimono sat on a tatami mat. The word extinction flashed on his screen. He remembered an ancient prophecy about a predator who would end the era of the awakened. He didn't hesitate. He ordered the Tianju squad to eliminate me at all costs. In Europe, the association heads were locked in a heated debate. Some wanted to protect me as a weapon against the calamity. Others argued that if I became too strong, no one would be able to control me. The argument went nowhere because they all knew the final decision didn't belong to them. It belonged to the strongest man in the world. Rex, the god's punishment, stood 10,000 meters above the Pacific Ocean. At his feet lay the massive corpse of an S-class calamity creature. It had taken him a full minute to kill it. S-class was his limit for an easy fight. He looked down at his wrist-mounted display, staring at the data coming in about me. His eyes were filled with a dark, complicated light. On the screen of Rex's wrist display was a photo of a young man. Lin Yuan. Double SSS grade. Rex's voice was a low murmur as he stared at the image. He remembered that call I had just hung up on, the look in my eyes. It was something that had actually made him feel a spark of fear. Rex closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them, the hesitation was gone. He issued the order immediately. The Global Awakened Association was to enter Level 1 combat readiness. Every Awakened ranked S-class or higher was to drop their current missions. Their new objective, Lin Yuan, the double SSS grade forbidden talent user in Jingzhou, China. Bring him to me, Rex commanded. Dead or alive. There was a 3-second silence on the other end of the line. Chairman, are you sure you want to? I'm sure, Rex snapped. He knew better than anyone that the existence of an SSS-grade predator meant no one's talent was safe anymore. Not even his own. This wasn't just a war, it was self-preservation. I had no idea the world had just sounded its highest alarm because of me. Even if I did, I wouldn't have cared. Right then, I was pushing forward, standing directly beneath the massive rift. This used to be the commercial plaza in the center of Jingzhou, but now it was just a massive crater filled with the rotting carcasses of monsters. In the center of that pit, something huge was moving. It was a giant creature, 3 stories tall, covered in black, leathery scales. It had no eyes, just a massive circular maw filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. A deep-sea devourer. D-class calamity creature. My infinite insight updated instantly. Its defense was closer to C-class, but it had a weakness. 3 nerve nodes hidden between the gaps of its back scales. Destroying one would paralyze it for 30 seconds. It also had a mental attack capability. Finally, a decent opponent, I muttered, a small smirk playing on my lips. I didn't hesitate. I leaped into the pit, landing hard on the monster's back. The impact made the beast shudder. Sensing an intruder, it opened its mouth and let out a piercing, ear-splitting shriek. A mental shockwave hit me like a physical wall. Infinite insight flashed a warning. My mental core tightened, absorbing the blow. I resisted it, but the system warned me that the next defense success rate was only 61%. That wasn't good enough. I needed to kill this thing before it could scream again. I took off running across its back. Using my Gale step, I blurred toward the first nerve node near its left shoulder. I activated my steel body and slammed my fist down with everything I had. The scales shattered. The nerve node exploded under my knuckles. The devourer went into convulsions, spraying black fluid from its mouth. 30 seconds of paralysis. I didn't waste a heartbeat. I sprinted to the second node. Another punch. Another explosion of gore. The paralysis timer reset. The monster thrashed violently, but it couldn't fight back. It needed time to charge its mental attacks, and while paralyzed, it was a sitting duck. I reached the third node. One more punch, and the beast went limp. It was now in a deep paralysis for 60 seconds. The system suggested a high-yield kill method. Enter through the mouth and destroy the core yuan nucleus inside. I looked at that disgusting, stinking circular maw. It was pitch black and smelled like a mountain of rotting fish. But infinite insight never steered me wrong. I took a deep breath and jumped straight into the monster's throat. It was dark, wet, and narrow. I landed on the soft, fleshy inner walls and used flame control to light a fireball in my palm. The inside of the beast looked like a series of pulsating caves dripping with slime. 20 meters ahead, turn right, the system guided me. The fleshy walls tried to constrict and crush me as I moved, but with my steel body active, my skin was like bedrock. The pressure felt like nothing more than a light itch. 10 seconds later, I found it, a glowing, dark red sphere about a meter wide. The Yuan nucleus. It was protected by 3 layers of semi-transparent biological shells. I rolled my shoulders and tightened my fist. My muscle density surged to its limit. I threw a punch. The first layer shattered. Second punch, the second layer cracked. Third punch, the shell gave way entirely. I reached out and grabbed the glowing core. The system asked if I wanted to absorb it. I didn't even have to think. Absorb. The core shattered into light, flowing into my body. 5,000 force points added. Total, 7,500. I also gained a new D-class talent, Mental Shock. It was a direct attack on a target's mental core. Better yet, it was compatible with my existing powers. I merged it immediately. The system informed me that if I devoured 4 more mental-type talents, this one would evolve to C-class. I felt the new power settle into my mind. It wasn't the strongest yet, but it was a perfect tool for a turning point. The devourer's body began to shake. Its life was fading fast. I didn't hang around to be buried inside it. I ran back up the esophagus and leaped out of its mouth just as the massive beast collapsed for good. 1,000 extra force points for the kill. Total, 8,500. I stood on top of the carcass, drenched in a mixture of black monster fluid and my own red blood. The internal pressure of the beast had given me some superficial cuts, but I barely felt them. I was focused on something else. When I absorbed that core, Infinite Insight had caught a flicker of an anomaly. A spatial coordinate. My silver eyes narrowed. I finally knew where my sister, Linyu, had been taken. She hadn't been snatched by a monster. She had been taken by a human, an awakened with spatial abilities who had snatched her right from the awakening ceremony. The person's force signature was still lingering in the air like a scent. Lock the signature, I commanded. Track it. The system required 5,000 force points to trace the coordinate. I paid it without a second thought. Target locked, the system chimed. Jingzhou Suburbs, Abandoned Industrial Zone, Underground Level 3. Distance, 12.7 kilometers. Suggest immediate departure. I jumped off the monster's corpse and hit the ground running. My gale step exploded with power as I tore toward the outskirts of the city. Whoever took her was about to realize they had made a fatal mistake. My speed was so high that I was a blur to the naked eye. I didn't care who these people were or what they wanted. If they dared to touch my sister, I would make them regret ever being born. 13 kilometers away, in a dimly lit laboratory 3 levels beneath the Jingzhou Industrial Zone, Linyu was strapped to a cold metal bed. Tubes and wires snaked across her body, connecting her to humming machines. Her eyes were squeezed shut, her face deathly pale. On her forehead, her origin mark flickered in and out of existence. Her talent level? It's still rising. A middle-aged man in a white lab coat stammered. His eyes were glued to the monitor, his voice shaking. It hit A grade. Now S. No, wait. This is SS grade. Beside him, an old man with white hair pushed his glasses up his nose. His eyes burned with a fanatical, cult-like hunger. The perfect receptor, he whispered. Any talent placed inside her can evolve without limit. She isn't just an awakened. She is the mother of all awakened. The old man turned his gaze to another screen showing a real-time feed of the city. I was on there, a silver streak tearing through the streets. An SSS-grade devourer and an SSS-grade perfect receptor. The old man cackled, his smile twisted and frantic. Brother and sister. It's fate. Once I take the brother's talent and fuse it with the sister, I will become something beyond SSS grade. I will be a god. He pressed a button on his intercom. All defense units, listen up. The target is approaching. Stop him at all costs. Capture him alive if possible. If not, kill him on the spot. Understood. A chorus of cold voices replied. The old man looked back at my sister. Don't blame me, little girl. Blame your brother for being too talented. He's so gifted that the entire world wants him dead. I didn't know about the lab yet, but I felt the clock ticking. I was sprinting through the ruins of Jingzhou Avenue. My gale step pushed to the absolute limit. At this speed, I'd be there in 15 minutes, assuming nobody got in my way. Suddenly, infinite insight flared a warning in my mind. Energy signatures detected ahead. Count, 12. Levels, B grade to A grade. Identity, human awakened. I skidded to a halt on the rooftop of an abandoned shopping mall. My silver eyes scanned the street below. 12 people stood in a perfect line, blocking my path. They wore matching black combat suits with a gold emblem on the chest, a sword piercing the earth. The Global Awakened Association, specifically their Special Operations Team. The leader was a man in his 30s with a square jaw and sharp, piercing eyes. A faint gold mark glowed on his forehead with the distinct shimmer of an A-grade talent. Lin Yuan, the leader said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a strange authority. Special Operations Team of the Global Association. We have orders to take you in. Come with us. I looked down at them from the rooftop, a cold smirk tugging at my lips. Take me in? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. 12 fully armed awakened blocking every exit. You call that an invitation? The leader didn't blink. The order is to capture you alive. If you cooperate, we can guarantee your safety. And if I don't? The leader was silent for 2 seconds. Then we do it the hard way. As soon as the words left his mouth, all 12 of them released their force. Multicolored light erupted as they activated their talents. The 3 in the front grew massive, their muscles bulging, physical enhancers. 4 on the flanks began conjuring fire, frost, and lightning, elementalists. 3 more blurred and vanished into thin air, assassins. The last 2 stood still, but I felt their mental waves pulsing, psychic types. It was a professional, high-level squad. They weren't just a mob, they were a machine. The leader drew an alloy combat knife from his hip. Blue flames ignited along the blade. Last chance. Come with us. I looked at him and laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Do you even know where my sister is? The leader blinked, caught off guard. My smile vanished, replaced by a gaze as cold as the void. You don't know, I whispered. You don't know anything. You're just dogs following in order to catch a threat. I took a step off the roof. The wind whipped past my ears as I plummeted, leaving an afterimage in the air. Engage, the leader roared. The 3 enhancers charged at me the moment my feet hit the pavement. Infinite insight instantly mapped out the battlefield. Asterisk left, iron fist, A grade. Weakness, elbow joint counterpressure. Right, steel leg, B+ grade. Weakness, lateral knee ligament. Center, diamond body, A- grade. Weakness, 0.3 second gap in force flow at the chest, asterisk. Their movements looked like they were happening underwater. I twisted my body in midair. A fist grazed my ear, a leg swung past my waist. The diamond body user punched straight for my face, but I tilted my head an inch, letting the blow whistle past. At the exact moment his force flow dipped, I tapped my index finger against his chest. Thump. His internal energy stalled. He froze for less than a second, but that was all I needed. I used the momentum of my turn to slam my elbow into the first attacker's joint. Crack. His arm went limp as the joint dislocated. He screamed, but I was already moving. I swept my leg out, catching the 3rd man right on the side of his knee. Snap. The ligament gave way. He hit the ground, clutching his mangled leg. 3 seconds. 3 high-level combatants neutralized. The street went deathly silent. The leader's pupils shrunk to pinpricks. He knew SSS grade was strong, but this was impossible. I hadn't even used a flashy talent yet. I had taken down 3 specialists with nothing but basic movements and perfect timing. Ranged units. Full cover fire, the leader screamed. The 4 elementalists were already moving. Fire, frost, lightning, and wind blades converged on me at once. Infinite insight. Fire arc at 120 degrees, gap on the left. Frost spear incoming. Impact in 1.2 meters. Lightning will chain to the rebar in the concrete. Wind blades curving from the right. I moved before the attacks even reached me. I stepped left into the gap in the flames, leaned forward to let the frost spear whistle over my back, and leaped into the air just as lightning hissed through the metal beneath my feet. While still in the air, I flicked my hand. I didn't just dodge the wind blades. I used my own fire manipulation to forge a blade of heat, slicing through the air currents. The entire barrage missed. It had taken me less than 2 seconds to dismantle their coordinated strike. This, this isn't human, one of the elementalists stammered, his hands shaking. It wasn't just about seeing the future with insight. It was about my body being fast enough to act on it. My steel physique and reinforced nerves allowed me to move as fast as I could think. I landed softly and blurred forward. Before the nearest elementalist could even scream, I was standing in his shadow. "My turn," I said. I pulled back my fist. I wasn't planning on making it quick. My first punch was pure, unadulterated power. It caught the nearest elementalist square in the jaw. I felt the bone give way as he flew back 3 meters and crumpled into the dirt, unconscious before he even hit the ground. I didn't stop. Second punch. Third. Fourth. The remaining 3 elementalists went down one by one. It was clean, efficient, and brutal. I looked up to see the team leader's face turning a sickly shade of ash green. 7 men were down. 3 physical enhancers and 4 elementalists had been neutralized in less than 10 seconds. Now, it was just him, 3 assassins, and 2 mental-type specialists. Invisibility. Guerrilla tactics, the leader roared, his voice cracking. Now, the 2 mentalists focused their energy, and the 3 assassins vanished into thin air, their forms melting into the light. The mentalists unleashed a psychic wave, a heavy fog of mental interference designed to scramble my senses. My infinite insight triggered its automatic defense. My mental core shuddered for a fraction of a second, but I forced it back into a steady rhythm. Success. Insight analysis. Enemy mental power at B grade. Threat level D. Accuracy drop during interference 12%. Status. Combat capable. I narrowed my silver eyes. A 12% drop? That was more than enough. I closed my physical eyes entirely. I didn't need them. Insight wasn't about sight. It was about perception. Even with the interference, I could see them. 3 blurry ripples in the air, 3 silhouettes of displaced wind closing in from the left, right, and rear. In front of me, the leader ignited his flame blade, preparing for a frontal assault. They were boxing me in from all 4 sides. I stood perfectly still, letting them believe they had the upper hand. 5 meters. 3 meters. 1 meter. Do it, the leader screamed. His flame blade swung down in a searing arc. Simultaneously, the 3 assassins reappeared, their daggers lunging for my vitals. The mentalists poured every ounce of their willpower into the interference, trying to pin me down. In that heartbeat, I moved. But I didn't target the leader. I didn't target the assassins. I went for the backline. I triggered a triple burst: Gale Step, Psychic Piercing, and Flame Control. I moved so fast the assassin's blade sliced through nothing but my afterimage. The 2 mentalists, still straining to maintain their fog, suddenly saw me standing right in front of them. Their pupils shrunk to pinpricks. What? I didn't let them finish. I hammered 2 invisible spikes of mental energy directly into their cores. Their eyes rolled back, white and vacant. Foam bubbled at their lips as they collapsed. The interference vanished instantly. My insight accuracy snapped back to 100%. I turned around slowly. The 3 assassins stood behind me, frozen in shock. The leader stood in front, his face a mask of pure despair. They finally realized the truth. My goal was never them, it was the specialists. Without the mentalists to cloud my vision, no one here could touch me. I had stood still just to lure the assassins out of hiding, waiting for the exact moment their focus peaked to strike their weak point. It wasn't just brute force. It was calculation. The leader's hand was shaking. He had survived 3 calamity wars and faced countless monsters, but he had never felt this powerless. I wasn't just a fighter, I was a precision machine. Every step was calculated. Every strike was lethal. "You," he stammered. I looked at him. My silver eyes held no killing intent and no mercy. Only a cold, flat calm. "I'm not going to kill you," I said. He blinked, stunned. "Tell Rex something for me." I turned my back on them and started walking toward the outskirts of the city. I have no interest in anything other than my sister. But if anyone else stands in my way. I paused, my voice dropping to a low growl. I won't be this kind a second time. I vanished in a burst of speed, leaving nothing but a gust of wind behind. The leader sank to the ground, drenched in cold sweat. He looked at his team, 12 elite operatives, all incapacitated. Not one was dead. Not one was even permanently crippled. Dislocated joints, concussions, temporary blackouts. Every single injury was precisely measured to disable, not destroy. A monster, he whispered to the empty street. It wasn't because I could kill. It was because I could kill, but chose exactly how much damage to deal instead. That level of control was more terrifying than any slaughter. I reached the outskirts of Jingzhou, standing before a derelict industrial plant. My insight mapped out the coordinates. 3 floors down, right beneath my feet. I scanned the area until my silver eyes caught an anomaly in the northeast corner. A 3-square-meter patch of ground had a different energy signature than the surrounding concrete. A camouflage coating. Beneath it sat a hidden elevator platform. I placed my palm on the ground and injected my energy. The floor hummed and began to sink, revealing a dark concrete shaft. The air smelled of damp mold and something else that made my blood run cold. Blood. I followed the spiraling passage down for 5 minutes until I reached a heavy metal door. There was no handle, only a palm print scanner. Insight, specific palm print required. Recommendation, brutal breach. I didn't hesitate. I channeled my steel physique into my fist and punched. The metal shrieked and buckled, tearing away from the frame and crashing inward. Beyond the door was a massive lab filled with flickering screens, tangled wires, and the sterile stench of disinfectant. In the center of the room, on a cold metal table, lay a young girl. She was covered in electrodes and tubes. Her face was deathly pale, her lips tinged blue. On her forehead, 2 circular marks were visible, one gold, one silver. Just like mine. Xiaoyu, my voice trembled. This was the girl who smiled and called me brother no matter what happened. The girl who held me and cried after our parents died, telling me we still had each other. The girl I had sworn to protect with my life. Now, she was being treated like a lab rat on a dissection table. My eyes flared, gold and silver light swirling together. This wasn't insight. This wasn't devour. This was a bone-deep, soul-scorching rage. You're finally here, a withered voice called from the shadows. A white-haired old man stepped out from behind a row of monitors. He pushed up his glasses and gave me a thin, chilling smile. It was a look of pure, unadulterated greed. Allow me to introduce myself, Lin Yuan. I am Chun Boqian, Chief Scientist of the Global Awakened Association. I am the one who brought your sister here. Welcome to my lab. I recognized the name. Before I awakened, I'd seen it in the archives. He was the man who designed the entire talent grading system. He was the world's foremost expert on awakened abilities, and the man most obsessed with cracking their secrets. What did you do to her? I asked. My voice was quiet, but the words felt like they were being dragged through broken glass. Don't be nervous, Chen Buqian said, his smile never wavering. Just basic energy testing and gene sampling. Your sister is safe. In fact, she's better than ever. He turned to a massive display showing a jagged data curve. Look at this. This is the evolution of a talent. From the moment of awakening, it soared. F, D, B, S, all the way to SSS. Your sister's talent is called perfect receptor. Any external talent factor that enters her body is infinitely copied, optimized, and evolved. I finally understood. My sister wasn't just a victim. She was the ultimate prize. Chen Buqian turned back toward the monitors, his eyes burning with a feverish light. She can contain any talent, he whispered. She is the mother body for all awakened. With her, I can manufacture an infinite army of SSS-grade warriors. My pupils contracted. Everything clicked. The kidnapping, the special operations team sent to intercept me. It wasn't about me at all. It was all for Lin Yu. And you, Chen Buqian said, pointing a finger at me, his smile widening. Your universal predator is the only ability that can actively extract talents. You steal them, inject them into your sister, and her perfect receptor evolves them to the limit. Then, we extract them back. SSS-grade flame control. SSS-grade steel body. SSS-grade everything. He spread his arms wide as if trying to embrace the entire world. Do you realize what this means? We can mass-produce God-tier talents. Calamities will no longer be a threat. It means you're a lunatic, I interrupted. My voice was calm, but my eyes were a swirling storm of gold and silver. The predator and insight marks were clashing, sending out a silent, deadly warning. Chen Buqian frowned. What did you say? I said you're a madman. I took a step forward. What do you think she is? A container? A tool? A factory? He flinched back a step, but he kept that sickening smile plastered on his face. This is for the sake of all humanity. Shut up. I took another step. The floorboards groaned and shattered under my feet, spiderwebbing in every direction. My steel body was reacting to my rage, the passive power leaking out. I wasn't losing control. I was suppressing an explosion. For humanity, you strap my sister to a table? For humanity, you plug her full of tubes? You want her to be milked like cattle for the rest of her life. Every step I took felt like an earthquake. You stay back. Chen Buqian finally panicked. He scrambled backward, screaming toward the rear of the lab. Guards, get the SS-grade guard in here. The back wall of the lab exploded. A massive figure emerged from the dust, over 2 meters tall, a mountain of scarred muscle. He was shirtless, and on his forehead sat a mark that made my blood run cold. It wasn't gold or silver. It was pitch black. Infinite insight kicked in instantly. Target, human awakened. Code name, Iron Arm Talent. SS-grade indestructible Vajra. Passive defense, SS-grade. Physical attacks, effectively useless. Active skill, Vajra Soul. Increases defense by another 300%. Weakness, mental defense is only B-grade. Speed, C-grade. Warning, physical defense is the highest recorded. My B-grade steel body couldn't even scratch him. If physical attacks wouldn't work, I'd use my mind. I readied my mental piercing, but Iron Arm grinned, seeing right through me. Don't bother, he rumbled. The old man fitted me with a mental defense plug-in. Your D-grade mental shock will feel like a tickle. I frowned. I scanned him again. An A-grade external mental defense device. Success rate of my current mental piercing, 3.7%. Basically zero. Ha! Chen Buqian ducked behind Iron Arm, his arrogance returning. You think I came unprepared? Iron Arm was picked specifically for you. Your insight can find his weaknesses, but so what? You can't break his skin, and your mental attacks are useless. Your flames are C-grade, and your wind steps are for running, not fighting. How do you plan to win? I stayed silent for a moment. Then I laughed. Chen Buqian, you made one mistake. What mistake? You think my talents are limited to just Predator and Insight. I raised my right hand, palm facing him. The golden mark on my forehead flared with blinding light. Universal Predator, copy mode, activated. The system pinged in my mind. It was detecting residual talent factors from the dead monsters nearby. Blade link worms detected. Talent, linked blades. Hardness, alloy grade. Copy. Yes. Three-headed hellhound detected. Talent, triple core. Survival, 30-second window after fatal wounds. Copy. Yes. Abyss devourer detected. Talent, enhanced mental shock. Effect, breaks through mental defense devices. Copy. Yes. I had 8,500 origin points. The copies cost me 3,300. Current status, flame control, C, steel body, B, gale steps, A, linked blades, E-evolvable, triple heart, E-evolvable, enhanced mental shock, de-evolvable. The prompt warned me these were temporary, lasting only 24 hours unless I permanently devoured the source. 24 hours was more than enough. My right arm began to mutate. Black veins pulsed under the skin as the muscle restructured itself. My entire forearm transformed into a jagged, gleaming bone blade. Linked blades, active. Inside my chest, 3 hearts began to beat in unison. Triple core, active. Chen Buqian's smile froze. Iron Arm's expression shifted from mockery to confusion. What is that? Chen Buqian's voice trembled. How can you use monster talents? I told you, I said, leveling the bone blade at Iron Arm. My silver eyes locked onto him. My talent is called Universal Predator. I don't just hunt humans. I hunt everything. I moved. Gale steps, linked blades, and enhanced mental shock, all firing at once. I was a blur. Iron Arm barely had time to cross his massive arms to block, but I wasn't aiming for him. I slid under his guard, the bone blade thrusting straight for Chen Buqian. Iron Arm reacted instantly, shifting his massive bulk to take the hit. The blade clanged against his chest, leaving only a faint white mark. His SS-grade defense was the real deal. But I didn't need to cut him. At the moment of impact, I released the enhanced mental shock. I didn't aim it at the giant. I curved it around him, slamming it directly into Chun Buqian's mind. The old man screamed. Blood sprayed from his nose and ears as he collapsed to his knees. He was only a C-grade awakened with zero mental protection. The shock shattered his consciousness instantly. Old man, Iron Arm roared. He swung a fist at me, the force so great it made the air shriek. I didn't take the hit. I triggered Gale steps and retreated 3 meters. The wind from the punch grazed my cheek, leaving a bloody gash. Just the pressure alone had broken my steel body's defense. An SS-grade power type was terrifying, but I remained calm. I pointed at the crumpled body of the scientist. Your job is to protect him, right? He's dying. Shouldn't you check on him? Iron Arm hesitated for a single second. 1 second was all I needed. I turned and lunged toward the metal bed where Lin Yu lay trapped. Stop him, Iron Arm roared. He was too late. I reached the bedside in a flash, my blades moving with surgical precision. I sliced through every wire, tube, and electrode tethering my sister to that cold machine. Lin Yu's body gave a small, violent shudder. The 2 circular marks on her forehead flickered with an unstable light. Xiao Yu, I whispered, gently tapping her cheek. Her eyelids fluttered and slowly opened. Those black eyes, so much like my own, were blank at first. Then, they focused on my face. Brother? Her voice was faint. It felt as light as a feather, but it hit me like a sledgehammer. It's me, I said, my voice cracking and raspy. I'm here now. Tears flooded her eyes instantly. Brother, I'm so scared. They gave me so many shots. It hurts. It hurts so much. I lifted her from the bed, moving with a tenderness I didn't know I possessed. I held her like she was the most fragile piece of porcelain in the world. Don't be afraid anymore, I murmured. I'm taking you home. Iron Arm stood 3 meters away, his massive fists clenched tight. He didn't move. He didn't attack. Seeing my tears seemed to trigger some distant, buried memory in his eyes. I turned my head to look at him. Are you going to stop me? Iron Arm remained silent for a long time. Finally, he shook his head. My mission was to protect Chun Buqian. He glanced at the unconscious scientist on the floor. He's out cold. The mission is over. Go. I nodded and carried Lin Yu toward the exit. As I passed him, Iron Arm didn't say a word. I stepped into the tunnel, my footsteps echoing as I moved further away. Behind me, Iron Arm stood alone in the wreckage of the lab. He let out a bitter, hollow laugh. SSS-grade predator. Copying monster talents. That kid is even more terrifying than the legends say. I emerged from the elevator platform and stepped back into the sunlight. Lin Yu curled into my chest like a frightened kitten, squinting at the brightness. Where are we going? She asked. Home, I replied, and I went silent for a moment. The apocalypse had arrived. Our physical home was gone, turned to rubble and ash. But it didn't matter, because wherever I was, that was home for her. My senses spiked as more than a dozen armored vehicles were screaming toward our location from every direction. I felt a ripple in the air, spatial fluctuations. Someone was using teleportation nearby. The world's strongest forces had arrived. I looked down at Lin Yu. She was too weak. She needed rest and medical attention. I couldn't protect her and fight a war at the same time. Xiao Yu, I said softly. I need to put you somewhere safe first. She gripped my shirt, her knuckles white. No, I don't want to leave you. I kissed her forehead. I promise, I'll be back for you soon. I scanned the nearby buildings. My infinite insight locked onto a residential basement nearby. It was hidden, empty of both monsters and humans. I sprinted inside, found a quiet corner, and set her down gently. Wait for me, I said. Lin Yu bit her lip, tears trembling in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She knew she was a distraction. She knew I had to fight. Brother, she whispered, her voice shaking. You have to come back. I touched her head one last time and walked out. The moment I stepped out of the building, I saw them. 7 figures hovered in the sky, looking down at me like gods. On the ground, a dozen armored vehicles formed a perfect circle, trapping me. Space twisted in front of me. 5 figures in black robes appeared out of thin air. At their head stood a middle-aged man with white hair and golden eyes. It was Rex, the president of the Global Awakened Association, an SS-grade powerhouse known as God's Punishment. Rex looked at me with a complicated expression. Rex said, Lin Yuan, the Global Association has issued a formal warrant for your arrest. Your crimes, plundering the talents of others, endangering the safety of the awakened community, and violating Article 7 of the International Convention. Drop your weapons. Come with us. I stood before the building, looking up at the 23S grade and above awakened surrounding me. The wind whipped my clothes, making them snap like a flag. I laughed. It wasn't a laugh of desperation or bitterness. It was a cold, bone-chilling sound that made the air turn sharp. 23S grades, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but every word carried perfectly through the clearing. Are you here to arrest me? Or are you here to die? Rex's face hardened. Lin Yuan, do not be stubborn. Boom. The ground beneath my feet shattered. Steel body, gale steps, triple star river, and enhanced mental shock. I activated everything at once. The golden gate of predation roared to life behind me.